Welcome. Take a deep breath before we begin. This is not just an audiobook about health. It is an invitation to return to yourself, to listen more closely to your body, to hear the quiet messages your mind has been sending, to remember that your well-being is not a luxury, not a side project, and not something to postpone until life is easier. Your health is your life in motion. It shapes how you wake in the morning, how you think, how you love, how you move through stress, and how you meet the world. When your health is neglected, everything feels heavier. Your mind grows foggy, your energy fades, your emotions become harder to carry. But when your health begins to return, when balance takes root, you do not simply feel better. You become more present, more alive, more able to live fully in your own days. This journey begins with honesty, not judgment, not guilt, not shame, honesty. A moment of pause, a question asked gently yet truthfully. How am I really doing? Am I nourishing myself in a way that gives me life? Am I moving in a way that strengthens me? Am I resting deeply enough to repair the wear and tear of life? Am I caring for my emotional world, or simply surviving it? For many, the answer is complicated. Modern life can pull us out of rhythm. We rush, we postpone, we're numb. We push through exhaustion and call it normal. We live on stimulation, deadlines, convenience, and stress until one day our bodies whisper what our minds have refused to hear. Sometimes the whisper turns into a warning. Sometimes the warning turns into a wake-up call. Sometimes that wake-up call becomes the beginning of a new life. That is what this audiobook is about. Not perfection, not punishment, not an impossible ideal. It is about alignment. It is about reconnecting with your body, your mind, and your inner life. It is about building your health in a way that is steady, sustainable, deeply personal, and authentic. Throughout this journey, you will be invited to let go of extremes and embrace consistency. You will be invited to stop fighting yourself and start understanding yourself. You will be reminded again that change does not begin with dramatic overhauls. It begins with awareness, then with one small act of care, then another and another. Over time, those small acts become a new way of life. In this audiobook, we will move through the essential pillars of health. We will talk about the foundation beneath it all. We will explore nourishment, movement, sleep, stress, emotional balance, gut health, healing, and the creation of sustainable habits. Finally, we will step into what it means to truly live your health revolution, not as a temporary project, but as an expression of who you are becoming. Wherever you are listening, whether you are walking, resting, driving, or simply sitting quietly, these words meet you there. You do not need to have everything figured out. You do not need to be ready in a perfect way. You only need a willingness to begin. Take another breath. This moment may be your turning point. Let's begin. Reclaiming your health foundation. Health is not built on trends. It is not built on guilt. It is not built on fear either. True health is built on a foundation. And that foundation rests on awareness, intention, and the choices that support your life from the ground up. Many people begin their health journey by trying to fix the surface. They focus on weight, appearance, numbers, or the latest wellness advice. They search for the perfect plan, diet, or routine. But without a strong inner foundation, even the best plan is hard to sustain. You can have information yet still feel disconnected. You can have good intentions yet still fall back into old patterns. Why? Because real change begins beneath behavior. It starts with how you see health. It starts with the beliefs you hold about yourself. It starts with the story you tell yourself about what you deserve. Reclaiming your health foundation means asking a deeper question. What does health truly mean to me? Not what social media says, not what diet culture says, not what fear says. What does health mean to you? Maybe it means waking up with energy rather than heaviness. Maybe it means feeling emotionally steady. Maybe it means being able to play with your children, focus on your work, create with clarity, travel freely, or move through your day without pain and exhaustion. Health is personal. When you define it for yourself, it stops being a performance and becomes a relationship. That relationship begins with awareness. Awareness asks you to observe your life without immediately trying to fix it, to notice your patterns, to notice when you eat out of stress rather than hunger, to notice when you scroll instead of resting, to notice when you say you have no time for yourself, even though your body is clearly asking for care. This is not about blame. It is about seeing clearly. Because what you can see, you can change. Your body is always speaking. It speaks through energy, fatigue, focus, mood, digestion, sleep, and tension in the shoulders, and racing thoughts at midnight. The question is not whether your body is speaking, it is whether you have slowed down enough to listen. When you begin listening, something powerful happens. Health stops feeling like a set of rules imposed from the outside. It becomes an act of self-respect that arises from within. You begin to understand that your well-being supports every other part of your life. Your creativity, patience, resilience, and joy all depend on it. Without health, life narrows. With it, life opens. This is why your foundation matters so much. A strong health foundation is not about doing everything at once. It is about grounding yourself in a few truths. The first truth is this: your health matters because you do, not because you need to prove anything, not because you need to become more acceptable, not because you need to earn care. You matter now. Because you matter, your health deserves attention. The second truth is that health is interconnected. Your food affects your mood, your movement affects your energy, your sleep affects your resilience, your stress affects your digestion, your thoughts affect your body, and your body affects your thoughts. Nothing exists in isolation. When you stop treating health as separate categories and start seeing the whole picture, you begin to make wiser, gentler, and more sustainable choices. The third truth is this: you do not need to start perfectly. You only need to start honestly. That means you begin where you are, not where you used to be, not where someone else is. Where are you? Perhaps you are tired of where you are right now. Perhaps you feel discouraged after trying so many times. Perhaps you feel disconnected from your body, disappointed in yourself, or unsure whether change will last. Still, you are here, and that matters. Every transformation begins with a return to truth, responsibility, and self. Let this chapter be your return. Let it be the moment you stop asking, "What quick fix will save me?" and start asking, "What kind of life am I building, and what does it require of me?" Maybe it requires more sleep. Maybe it requires boundaries. Maybe it requires nourishment rather than restriction. Maybe it requires more walking, more sunlight, more stillness, and more honesty. Whatever it requires, start there. Not with intensity, with sincerity. You are not building a temporary plan. You are laying a foundation strong enough to support the life you want. Foundations are built one brick at a time. Today, perhaps your brick is simply awareness. Perhaps it is deciding that your health is no longer negotiable. Perhaps it is believing, even a little, that you are worth the effort. That is enough. That is where revolutions begin. Nutrition for vitality. Food is more than fuel. It is information. It is rhythm. It is memory. It is medicine. It is one of the most intimate ways you communicate with your body each day. What you eat becomes part of you. It shapes your energy, focus, digestion, hormones, immunity, mood, and even the steadiness of your emotions. Yet for so many people, food has become confusing. It has become tangled up with guilt, fear, control, reward, shame, and endless, contradictory advice. One voice says to cut everything. Another says to count everything. Another says to optimize every bite. Amid all that noise, many people lose the simplest truth. Food is meant to nourish you. Nutrition for vitality is not about punishing yourself into discipline. It is about learning to eat in a way that gives your body what it truly needs to thrive. Vitality is different from mere survival. Survival is getting through the day. Vitality is feeling awake within your life. Food plays a central role in that. When you eat in a way that supports your body, you often notice it first in subtle ways. Your mornings feel clearer, your focus sharpens, your energy stabilizes. Cravings stop ruling you, your digestion calms. Your body feels less like something you drag through the day and more like something that can carry you well. This does not require perfection, it requires attention. A nourishing way of eating begins with simplicity, whole foods, real ingredients, foods that still resemble their origins. Vegetables are full of color and fiber. Fruits are rich with life. Protein that supports repair and satiety. Healthy fats that nourish your brain and hormones. Carbohydrates that provide steady energy instead of extreme spikes and crashes. The body responds beautifully to consistency with these basics. Yet nutrition is not only about what is on your plate, but also about how you eat. Do you rush? Do you multitask? Do you eat while stressed, distracted, standing, scrolling, driving, or emotionally shut down? Because the nervous system matters too, a meal eaten in panic is not received the same way as one eaten in the presence. Slowing down changes digestion. Presence changes digestion. Gratitude changes digestion. One of the most powerful shifts you can make has nothing to do with a trend. It is simply this: slow down enough to be with your meal. Taste it, chew it, notice it. Let nourishment become an experience rather than an unconscious transaction. This is where many people rediscover their respect for food. Not fear, not obsession, respect. Respect includes listening. Your body gives feedback constantly. Some foods energize you. Some leave you foggy. Some satisfy you deeply. Some trigger cravings that never seem to end. Some soothe your body. Some inflame it. Learning about nutrition means learning about your body. That means being curious rather than rigid, asking questions rather than following extremes, and paying attention rather than assuming. How do I feel after this meal? Do I feel nourished, heavy, restless, calm, or clear? What patterns keep repeating? Which foods help me feel like myself? When you approach eating with curiosity, the entire journey becomes more sustainable. You no longer need to live in all or nothing cycles. You no longer must bounce between restriction and overeating. You no longer need to treat one meal as a moral event. Instead, you begin building a way of eating that reflects balance. Balance means making room for pleasure without sacrificing nourishment. It means understanding that a healthy life is not made or broken by a single meal. Patterns shape it. It is shaped by the rhythm of what you do most often. That is deep freeing. Because once you stop trying to be perfect, you finally become able to be consistent. Nourishing yourself well may begin with a few simple shifts. Maybe you can add protein to breakfast so you stop crashing before noon. Maybe you drink more water and notice your headaches lessen. Maybe you eat more fiber and your digestion improves. Maybe you plan your meals with more care so convenience no longer makes every decision for you. Maybe you bring color back to your plate and discover that your body responds with gratitude. These changes may seem small, but small changes, repeated, reshape a life. And then there is the emotional side of eating. Many people do not eat only because of hunger. They eat because of fatigue, loneliness, anxiety, celebration, boredom, comfort seeking. Food becomes a companion, a sedative, a reward, or a distraction. There is nothing shameful about this. It is human nature. But when food becomes your only coping tool, it begins to carry emotional weight it was never meant to hold. So part of nutritional healing is learning to ask, what am I hungry for? Sometimes the answer is food. Sometimes it is rest. Sometimes it is comfort. Sometimes it is stimulation. Sometimes it is relief. Sometimes it is a connection. The more honest you are about your deeper hunger, the more freedom you gain. Nutrition for vitality invites you to feed your body well, but also to stop asking food to solve every ache in the heart. And that is where nourishment becomes holistic. You begin eating enough. You begin eating well. You begin eating with awareness. You begin to build trust with your body. Not by controlling every detail, but by caring enough to listen. Imagine what changes when you begin seeing meals not as battles but as support. Imagine starting the day with food that steadies your mind instead of sending you into a crash. Imagine moving through the afternoon without the usual fog. Imagine your evenings feeling calmer because your body has been nourished rather than deprived. Imagine having more energy not because you forced yourself harder, but because you finally fed yourself better. This is what nourishment can accomplish. It can become a daily act of partnership with your body, a repeated message that says, I am paying attention. I am learning your needs. I am no longer abandoning you. Let your meals be part of your healing. Let them be moments of care. Let them be a return to simplicity, steadiness, and life-giving rhythm. Food does not need to be perfect to be powerful. It only needs to be chosen with greater awareness than before. And that awareness, practiced daily, becomes vitality. Move your body. Reignite your energy. The body is meant to move, not to be punished, not to be sculpted into worthiness, not to perform for approval, to move, to circulate life, to awaken energy, to express what it means to be alive. When movement becomes disconnected from joy, it often turns into an obligation, something you should do, something you postpone, something that feels tied to guilt. But when movement is reclaimed as a relationship with your aliveness, everything changes. Movement is not only about fitness, it is about vitality. It is about blood flow, oxygen, posture, mood, confidence, resilience, and mental clarity. It is one of the fastest ways to remind your body that it is not stuck. Yet many people resist exercise because they have been taught to approach it with shame. The inner voice says, I must burn this off. I must force myself. I must make up for what I ate. I must become someone else. That voice does not foster a lasting movement practice. It fosters avoidance. The body responds better to partnership than to punishment. What would happen if you stopped asking, what workout should I force myself to do, and started asking, how does my body want to move? That question opens a door. Because movement can take many forms. Walking through your neighborhood as your thoughts settle into place. Stretching in the morning as your body slowly wakes. Dancing in your kitchen when no one is watching. Swimming, cycling, yoga, hiking, strength training, mobility work, martial arts, and Pilates. There is no single correct way to move. There is only the task of finding what helps you come alive. When you find movement that feels meaningful, consistency becomes easier, not effortless but more natural. Consistency matters more than intensity. Many people make the mistake of starting too hard. They launch into routines that demand too much, too soon, and then conclude they lack discipline when they cannot sustain them. But the issue is often not disciplined. It is a mismatch. The body needs respect, progression, and patience. If you are rebuilding your relationship with movement, start where you are. That may mean 10 minutes of walking. It may mean simple body weight exercises. It may mean stretching every evening. It may mean taking the stairs more often or standing up more during the day. Small beginnings are not weak, they are wise. Every time you move with intention, you send a message through your body. We are not shutting down. We are not collapsing. We are still in motion. And motion creates momentum. One of the greatest gifts of movement is not just physical change, it is an emotional shift. A walk can untangle a crowded mind. Strength training can reconnect you with your capabilities. Gentle mobility work can ease the tension you did not realize you were carrying. Breath-led movement can calm the nervous system and help you return to yourself. Movement changes how you feel from the inside out. It can help release stress that talking alone cannot relieve. It can reduce mental heaviness. It can increase confidence, not because you look different, but because you begin to trust your own effort. There is something deeply healing about knowing you can show up for your body, even imperfectly, even briefly, even after long periods of disconnection. If you have felt disconnected, start by removing the pressure to perform. You do not need to impress anyone. You do not need a dramatic transformation story to justify starting. You only need a willingness to step back into your body. Some days movement will feel energizing. Some days it will feel difficult. Some days your body will ask for a challenge. Some days it will ask for gentleness. Learning to discern the difference is part of practice. Health is not built by overworking your body every day. It is built by listening well. Sometimes wise movement means effort. Sometimes wise movement means rest. Sometimes wise movement means choosing a walk over a workout because your nervous system is already overwhelmed. Sometimes it means strength training because your spirit needs to remember its own power. What matters is that movement becomes part of your life, not as punishment, but as a language of care. This chapter invites you to reclaim exercise as something deeply personal, not a borrowed routine, not a forced identity, your own living relationship with energy. Picture the version of you who moves regularly, not obsessively, not perfectly, but regularly. That version of you stands differently, breathes differently, carries stress differently, feels more capable in daily life. That person is not necessarily the most intense in the room, but they are connected. They are engaged with their body. They know movement is not a luxury. It is part of what keeps the inner fire burning. You deserve that connection. Move in ways you can return to. Move in ways that build strength without stealing your spirit. Move in ways that honor your season of life. Move because your body was designed for it. Move because stagnant energy becomes stagnant living. Move because every step, stretch, lift, breath, and rhythm reminds you that you are still becoming. When motivation fades, let ritual carry you. When perfection whispers, answer with consistency. When comparison rises, return to your own body. Your movement practice does not need to look impressive. It needs to be alive. That aliveness is enough. It will build energy. It will reignite you. Sleep like a champion. Sleep is the quiet healer. It works in darkness without applause, spectacle, or demanding attention. Yet it is one of the most powerful forces in your health. When you sleep well, the body repairs itself. The brain clears. Hormones rebalance. Memories consolidate. The nervous system relaxes. The immune system recovers. Emotions settle into their proper proportions. When you do not sleep well, everything becomes harder. Focus weakens. Stress feels louder. Cravings intensify. Patience shrinks. Energy becomes unstable. Even healthy choices become more difficult because exhaustion erodes your ability to make wise choices. This is why sleep must stop being treated as optional. It is not extra or a reward for finishing everything. It is a biological necessity and a profound form of healing. Many people are tired to the point that they no longer question it. They assume this is adulthood. They assume it is normal. But constant exhaustion is not a personality trait. It is a signal. The body heals in rhythm. Sleep is part of that rhythm. To sleep like a champion is not merely to spend enough hours in bed. It is to create conditions that allow the body and mind to surrender to deep, restorative rest. That begins with the environment. Your bedroom should be a sanctuary rather than a spillover zone for stress. Darkness matters. Quiet matters. Comfort matters. Cool air matters. A room that feels safe and peaceful sends a message to the nervous system. You may let go now. But the outer environment is only one piece. The inner environment matters as much. You cannot live on constant stimulation all day and expect deep rest to arrive instantly at night. If your nervous system has been flooded with pressure, screens, news, scrolling, caffeine, emotional overload, and unresolved tension, it often needs a bridge to sleep. That bridge is your evening routine. A calming bedtime rhythm can change everything. Dimming the lights and putting away devices earlier, reading something soothing, stretching gently, breathing slowly, taking a warm shower, and writing down the thoughts that would otherwise follow you into bed. These are not trivial acts. They are signals, and the body learns through them. A restful life is built on repeated signals of safety and rhythm. Light also profoundly shapes sleep. Your body follows natural cycles. Morning light helps anchor the internal clock, while evening darkness signals it to prepare for rest. When those rhythms are constantly disrupted, sleep becomes more fragile. So if you want better nights, start with better signals during the day. Wake at a more regular time. Get natural light in the morning. Move your body. Be mindful of caffeine. Give the nervous system opportunities to settle rather than staying activated until the final hour. Sleep is not an isolated event. It is influenced by how you live from morning onward. And then there is the emotional dimension. Many people do not struggle with sleep because they are physically incapable of sleeping. They struggle because they carry the whole day into bed. Unspoken stress, unfinished thoughts, anxiety about tomorrow, old worries revived in the silence. Night can magnify what daylight obscures. This is why calming the mind matters, not by forcing thoughts away, but by creating enough inner safety so the mind no longer needs to stay on guard. A few deep breaths, a practice of gratitude, a short meditation, a gentle reminder that rest is productive, necessary, and deserved. For some, this shift is as much emotional as practical. They must stop believing that rest is laziness. They must stop measuring worth by exhaustion. They must stop wearing burnout as proof of effort. Rest is not weakness. Rest is wisdom. Deep sleep is one of the purest forms of restoration available to you. Imagine what changes when your body finally gets the rest it has been asking for. Your mornings become less violent. Your thinking becomes clearer. Your emotions become less reactive. Your hunger becomes more stable. Your body feels less inflamed, less strained, and less desperate for quick energy. Sleep can make healthy living feel possible once again. That is why protecting it is an act of strength. This chapter invites you to become someone who honors sleep, not as an afterthought, but as a cornerstone, someone who creates rhythms that support recovery. Someone who understands that true performance, true resilience, and true well-being are not built by running on empty. They are built through cycles of effort and repair. So tonight, or whenever your day begins to slow, ask yourself, what would help my body feel safe enough to rest? Then begin there. A darker room, a gentler evening, a quieter mind, a more consistent rhythm. One improved night leads to another. Over time, rest becomes part of the architecture of your life. Sleep is not wasted time. It is healing time. It is rebuilding time. It is the invisible labor that makes your visible life possible. Honor it. Protect it. Return to it. Let sleep teach you what the modern world often forgets, that renewal is as essential as effort. Mastering stress and emotional health. Stress is not only in your thoughts, it lives in your body. It tightens the jaw, shortens the breath, tenses the shoulders, disrupts digestion, interrupts sleep, alters appetite, sharpens reactivity, steals presence. Left unaddressed, stress does not remain mental. It becomes physiological. It becomes habitual. It becomes a way of life. The body begins to be treated as normal, even as it slowly drains you. This is why mastering stress and emotional health is not a luxury. It is central to healing. Mastery of stress does not mean eliminating difficulty from life. That is impossible. Life will always contain challenge, uncertainty, grief, responsibility, pressure, and change. The goal is not to remain untouched by life. The goal is to become more grounded within it. That begins with awareness. You must first notice how stress shows up in you. Do you become irritable? Do you shut down? Do you overeat, overwork, overscroll, or overthink? Do you disconnect from your body? Do you feel restless, numb, controlling, exhausted, or emotionally flooded? Stress has a signature. Learning yours is powerful. Once you can recognize your pattern, you can interrupt it. Many people live in a chronic state of activation. They are always bracing, rushing, and anticipating the next problem. Even in moments that should feel calm, their nervous system remains on alert. When this becomes the norm, peace can feel unfamiliar. Stillness can feel uncomfortable. Rest can feel undeserved. That is how profoundly stress can shape a person. But the body can learn new patterns. The nervous system can be supported. Emotional health can be restored. The first step is to slow down enough to notice what is happening inside you. Not after the damage is done, sooner, earlier. At the first sign that your inner world is becoming overwhelmed. Perhaps your signal is shallow breathing. Perhaps it is stomach tension. Perhaps it is snapping at the people you love. Perhaps it is a sudden craving for distraction. Whatever the signal, start respecting it. It is information. Then create practices that help regulate, not merely to escape. Escaping is easy. You can numb yourself with food, noise, busyness, endless content, substances, or avoidance. But regulation is different. It brings you back. It tells the body, you are safe enough to soften now. This may begin with breath, a few slow exhalations, a pause between demands, a walk without your phone, journaling the thoughts that keep spinning, gentle movement to release what words cannot, silence, prayer, meditation, time in nature, talking honestly with someone safe. These simple practices may seem minor, but they are not to the nervous system. They are interventions. They are reorientations. They are acts of emotional leadership. Emotional health is not only about managing stress. It is also about making space for what you feel. Many people have learned to treat emotions as problems to solve or as weaknesses to hide. But emotions are signals too. Sadness, anger, fear, disappointment, grief, loneliness, these are not failures of character. They are part of the human experience, asking for attention, compassion, and wise expression. Unfelt emotion does not disappear. It often settles in the body, into tension, into fatigue, into inflammation, into habits that try to mask what has not been processed. Healing requires honesty. What am I carrying right now? What have I not allowed myself to feel? What am I pretending does not affect me? These are brave questions, and they matter because the body keeps score of what the mind avoids. As you strengthen your emotional health, boundaries also become essential. You cannot heal in an environment where you are constantly overextended, overstimulated, and unavailable to yourself. Sometimes stress is not only internal, it is built into the structure of your life. Too many commitments, not enough rest, no room to process, little protection for your energy. In such a life, the body, of course, protests. So part of health is learning where to say no, learning that protecting your peace is not selfish, learning that you are not meant to be endlessly available while privately collapsing. Mastering stress means being more intentional about how you live, what you absorb, how you respond, and where you direct your energy. It also means practicing self-compassion, Many people add a second layer of suffering to stress by attacking themselves for experiencing it, feeling overwhelmed, and then judging themselves for not coping better. They feel emotional, then shame themselves for being too sensitive. Compassion breaks that cycle. Compassion says, "This is hard right now. I am allowed to slow down. I can respond wisely without abandoning myself." That inner voice changes everything. You do not become emotionally strong by hardening. You become emotionally strong by learning to stay present with yourself. A regulated nervous system, honest emotional awareness, healthier coping tools, stronger boundaries, more self-kindness. These are not extras. They are part of the structure of real health. When stress no longer rules you, your body can finally devote more energy to healing instead of merely surviving. And that is the gift of this chapter. Not a stress-free life, but a stronger, wiser, more compassionate way of meeting the life you have. Gut health, immunity, and healing from within. Deep within the body, a quiet world is at work. A living ecosystem, a center of communication, a gateway between what enters you and what sustains you. This is the gut, and its influence extends far beyond digestion. The gut is linked to energy, inflammation, mood, immunity, nutrient absorption, mental clarity, and the body's capacity to heal. It is often called the second brain for good reason. What happens in the gut does not stay there. It echoes throughout the whole system. When gut health is compromised, signs can manifest in many ways: bloating, fatigue, brain fog, skin issues, mood swings, irregular digestion, food sensitivities, frequent illness. A vague sense that something is off, even when you cannot explain why. The body is intricate, and everything is connected. Inside the gut, trillions of microbes, bacteria, and other organisms help digest food, produce certain compounds, support immunity, and influence inflammatory processes. When this internal environment is diverse and balanced, it supports resilience. When it is disrupted, the effects can ripple through the body. This is why healing from within often starts here. A healthy gut is nourished by what you feed it consistently. Fiber-rich foods are among its greatest allies. Vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, seeds, and other whole plant foods help support beneficial microbes and keep the system functioning more smoothly. Fermented foods can also be helpful for many people. Yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and other traditionally prepared foods that bring life back to the plate. Hydration matters too. So does stress. So does sleep. So does the speed at which you eat. This is the beauty and the challenge of health. No single habit stands alone. You cannot fully heal the gut while living in constant panic. You cannot expect digestion to thrive while rushing through every meal. You cannot support a healthy gut while sleeping poorly and relying heavily on processed foods. The body is always responding to the entire environment. Inflammation itself is not the enemy. In the right amount, it is part of healing. But when inflammation becomes chronic, driven by stress, poor diet, disrupted sleep, environmental overload, and constant nervous system activation, it can start wearing the body down. One of the most powerful ways to reduce unnecessary inflammation is to simplify. Eat more foods your body recognizes and uses well. Reduce the constant assault of ultra-processed convenience foods. Notice which foods leave you feeling swollen, foggy, or unwell. Be willing to experiment. Be willing to listen. Your body does not need trend-driven perfection. It needs less friction and support. Healing from within also means paying attention to signs without becoming fearful. If certain foods consistently leave you bloated or exhausted, that is not something to ignore. It may be worth observing patterns, simplifying your meals for a time, or making one change at a time so you can notice what helps. Curiosity is more useful than panic. The gut thrives on rhythm. Regular meals, sufficient fiber, sufficient water, less stress, more presence, foods that nourish rather than merely stimulate. This kind of care may seem modest from the outside, but it can transform how you feel from the inside. And then there is immunity. Much of your immune activity is connected to the gut. This means that supporting digestive health is not only about comfort, it is also about resilience. It is about how prepared the body is to protect and repair itself. When the gut is under strain, immunity can be compromised. When the gut is supported, the body often becomes more resilient overall. This is one reason healing from within is such a powerful phrase. True healing often begins in places people cannot see, in the lining of the gut, in the quality of sleep, in reduced inflammation, in the steadiness of the nervous system, in the patient's repeated choices that look small from the outside but are profound inside the body. You may not see these shifts overnight, but the body notices, the body responds, the body remembers consistent care. Imagine the internal world becoming calmer. Digestion is more settled, energy is more stable, immunity is less strained, mind is less foggy, mood is less volatile. This is not fantasy. It often becomes possible when you stop overwhelming the body and start supporting it. So let this chapter remind you that healing is not always loud. Sometimes it is invisible at first. Sometimes it happens beneath the surface. Sometimes the earliest signs are subtle, less bloating, a steadier mood, fewer crashes, and more clarity. Honor those signs. The gut is not an isolated system. It is part of your whole story. Feed it with care. Protect it from constant stress whenever possible. Support it with rhythm and real nourishment. And trust that, when given the right conditions, the body is always working toward balance. Healing from within is not about forcing the body. It is about providing the body with a better environment in which to do what it was designed to do. Create lasting change and sustainable habits. Everyone wants change, but most people are exhausted by how they try to create it. They rely on intensity, motivation, emotional highs, and all-or-nothing promises. At first, that can feel exciting, but it rarely lasts. Real transformation is not built on dramatic beginnings. It is built on sustainable repetition. Habits are what endure when motivation fades. They are the quiet architecture of your life. They shape what you eat, how you move, when you rest, how you cope, and who you become over time. That is why lasting change begins small, not because you are aiming low, but because you are aiming wisely. A glass of water in the morning, a 10-minute walk after lunch, a protein-rich breakfast, a consistent bedtime, 5 minutes of breathing before sleep, one planned meal, one act of self-awareness before reacting. Small habits may seem unimpressive to the part of the mind that craves dramatic results, but small habits are often the only ones strong enough to survive real life. This matters because the goal is not to do something heroic for 10 days. The goal is to create patterns that can hold through the ordinary weeks of your life. Sustainable habits are built on identity as much as on action. If, deep down, you still see yourself as someone who is always failing, always starting over, and always breaking promises to yourself, then every habit will feel fragile. But when your identity begins to shift, when you start seeing yourself as someone who shows up, learns, and cares, your habits gain roots. So begin changing the story, not with empty affirmations, but with evidence. Every small promise kept is evidence. Every repeated act is proof. I am becoming someone who drinks water upon waking. I am becoming someone who moves regularly. I am becoming someone who prioritizes sleep. I am becoming someone who responds to stress with awareness. This is how identity is built through repeated alignment. One of the greatest obstacles to lasting change is perfectionism. Perfectionism says that if you miss a single day, you have failed. If you cannot complete the full routine, do nothing. If you slip, start over next Monday. But sustainable change rejects that logic. It says, return quickly, miss once, begin again. Have a hard day, choose one caring act anyway. Stopping at mistakes means losing the whole path. Consistency is not the absence of interruption, it is the habit of returning. That single truth can spare years of unnecessary self-sabotage. The environment also matters more than most people realize. Your habits do not exist only in your mind. They are shaped by what is easy, visible, available, and repeated in your surroundings. If your environment constantly pulls you away from your goals, discipline will feel like a daily war. So, support yourself practically. Keep nourishing foods within reach. Reduce unnecessary temptations where possible. Prepare simple options ahead of time. Create visual reminders of what matters. Set up your space to make good choices easier. This is not cheating. It is intelligent design. Accountability can help as well. Some people grow stronger when they share their goals with a friend, coach, partner, or community. Others prefer journaling, tracking patterns privately, or reflecting weekly on what is working. The method matters less than honesty. You need a way to stay in a relationship with your own growth. Growth will include setbacks. That is not a flaw in the process. It is part of the process. There will be stressful weeks, travel weeks, emotional weeks, messy weeks, weeks when your old habits call to you more loudly than your new ones do. In those moments, do not ask for perfection. Ask for continuity. What is the smallest version of care I can still provide today? Maybe it is going to bed earlier. Maybe it is taking a short walk. Maybe it is drinking water. Maybe it is choosing one balanced meal instead of surrendering the entire day. Maybe it is taking 3 deep breaths before speaking. Small continuity prevents collapse. Preventing collapse is a major victory. Over time, habits stop feeling like effortful decisions and become the way you live. That is when change becomes stable. It is no longer something you are trying to do. It is something you do because it is now part of who you are. This chapter invites patience, not passive patience, active patience, the kind that keeps planting even when the harvest is not immediate, the kind that trusts in repetition, the kind that understands that transformation often seems slow until one day it seems obvious. Build habits with respect for your real life. Build habits with flexibility. Build habits with compassion. Build habits that support your energy rather than drain it. And remember, you do not need to transform overnight. You need to keep choosing the life you say you want, one day, one routine, one honest return at a time. That is how lasting change is made, and not by intensity alone, but by rhythm, structure, self-trust, and sustainable acts, repeated long enough to become your new normal. Living your health revolution, a new you. There comes a moment in every real transformation when health stops feeling like a project and becomes an identity. Not an identity built on labels, not one built on comparison, but one built on embodiment. You begin to live differently because you have become different. Not entirely new, perhaps, but more aligned, more aware, more present, and more capable of hearing your body before it must shout. This is what living your health revolution means. It means health is no longer something you visit only occasionally. It becomes part of how you move through your life, in your mornings, in your meals, in your breathing, in your boundaries, in your choices, in your relationship with effort and rest. This new version of you may still have hard days. That does not go away. But the way you meet those days changes. You no longer interpret every difficult moment as a failure. You no longer abandon yourself so quickly. You no longer need life to be perfect to care for yourself. That is growth. That is embodiment. Living your health revolution means noticing subtle shifts. Perhaps you wake with more steadiness than before. Perhaps your body feels less inflamed. Perhaps your moods no longer swing as wildly. Perhaps your energy feels more reliable. Perhaps you recover more quickly after difficult days. Perhaps your self-talk has softened. Perhaps your choices now come more from respect than from fear. These changes matter. They are not minor. They are evidence that your inner life has reorganized around care. The beautiful thing about living this way healthily is that it ripples outward. When you feel more balanced, you show up differently in relationships. You listen better, react less impulsively, offer more presence, work with more clarity, create with more openness, carry yourself with more ease. Health is never only personal. It shapes the quality of your presence in the world. This chapter is not about reaching a final finish line. In truth, there is no finish line. Health is alive. It changes with the seasons, age, stress, healing, loss, joy, new responsibilities, and new dreams. What serves you in one season may need to be adjusted in another. That is not failure, that is wisdom. A health revolution is not rigid, it evolves. To live it well, you must stay in a relationship with yourself. You must keep asking, how do I feel? What do I need right now? What is supporting me? What is draining me? What is this season asking me to learn? These questions keep you from slipping back into autopilot. And perhaps that is one of the greatest gifts of all. You are no longer asleep within your life. You are paying attention. You are participating. You are choosing. This way of living also deepens self-trust. Every time you respond to your body with care, honor your needs without dramatizing them, and recover from a setback instead of spiraling into self-judgment, you strengthen trust. And trust changes everything. Once you trust yourself, health no longer feels like a battle against your nature. It becomes a collaboration. You understand your patterns more clearly. You know when you need rest and when you need a challenge. You can tell the difference between avoidance and genuine fatigue. You no longer need to be controlled from the outside because your inner awareness has grown stronger. That is freedom. And freedom is one of the deepest goals of health. Not freedom to neglect yourself without consequence, but freedom from chaos. Freedom from the constant cycle of self-abandonment and rescue. Freedom from believing you can care for yourself only when circumstances are ideal. The new you is not a perfect person. The new you is more connected, a person who knows that nourishment matters, that movement matters, that rest matters, that emotional honesty matters. Those small habits matter. That health is not a punishment, but a way of honoring life itself. As you embody this, your choices feel more natural. You begin to crave what supports you not because you force it, but because you have experienced the difference. You know how much better your body feels when you care for it. You know how much more peaceful your mind becomes when sleep is protected. You know how stress affects you now, and you have tools to meet it. You know that one hard day does not undo your path. This is maturity in health. This is what sustainable transformation looks like. So live your revolution not loudly, but faithfully. Live it in your kitchen, in your routines, in your pauses, in your calendar, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you return after hardship. Let your health be both your foundation and your expression. Not a performance, a practice. Not a temporary challenge, a way of being. When you look ahead, do not ask whether you will ever become perfect. Ask whether you are more present, more grounded, more aligned, and more able to meet life without abandoning yourself. If the answer is yes, your revolution is already alive. Final word for you. Take one more breath. Let it arrive gently. Let it leave slowly. You have traveled through a great deal in this journey, not just information, but an invitation to listen more closely, to care more honestly, to see health not as a pressure, but as a path back to your own life. Along the way, you have been reminded that your health is not separate from the rest of who you are. It is woven into your energy, choices, emotions, creativity, relationships, resilience, and joy. You have seen that transformation begins with awareness, that nourishment matters, that movement awakens more than muscles, that sleep is sacred, that stress must be met with wisdom, not denial. That healing often starts in hidden places within the gut, the nervous system, and the unseen rhythms of daily life. That habits shape destiny, and that a healthier life is not built in a single heroic moment, but through many ordinary moments of care. Most of all, you have been invited into a different relationship with yourself, one rooted not in shame but in respect, not in urgency but in steady commitment, not in impossible standards but in meaningful alignment. This is the heart of the revolution, not becoming someone else, becoming more fully yourself. The self beneath the overwhelm, the self beneath the exhaustion, the self beneath the coping patterns that once felt necessary, the self that knows what it means to feel alive, clear, nourished, and connected. As you continue beyond this audiobook, remember that health is not a straight line. There will be seasons of strength and seasons of struggle. There will be days when your rituals feel natural and days when you must begin again with humble, simple choices. That doesn't indicate the work is failing. It is a sign you are human. So keep returning. Return to your breath. Return to your body. Return to what supports you. Return to compassion when perfection tempts you to quit. Return to your values when life grows noisy. Return to the quiet truth that you are worth caring for. Because you are. You do not need a crisis to start honoring yourself. You do not need to wait for things to get worse. You do not need permission to care for your well-being. You can choose now, in small ways, in practical ways, in everyday ways. Drink the water, take a walk, prepare the meal, go to bed earlier, put down the screen, breathe before reacting, listen before overriding, rest before breaking. Let each small act be a vote for the life you want. And remember this, health is not a finish line waiting somewhere in the distance. It is a living relationship, renewed each day, a conversation between you and your body, a promise to your future, a way of saying yes to this one life you have been given. So step forward with patience, courage, softness, and determination. Let your health be the thread that strengthens your days. Let it be the quiet power behind your choices. Let it be the light that helps you keep becoming your fullest self. This is your revolution. It belongs to no trend, no rule book, and no outside voice. It belongs to you, and it begins again right here with your next decision. Thank you for listening.